Hey, what's up everybody, Nexel here. Today we are playing Kingdom Hearts Union Cross and we have a lot to talk about with June starting up. So let's go ahead and just dive right into the notices and talk about everything, do some polls, and go from there. So our first notice is the board deals notice. So this is actually really good. So the first board deal we're getting is going to be for 3,500 jewels. You're going to get 20 of one specific gem. So if you buy the enhancement set plus 1, you're going to get 20 power gems. If you do the speed gems ones, you're getting 20 speed gems. And let's go ahead and just pull those up really quickly. So I really like those deals because one of the things I complain about when I talk about newer players joining the game, again, we're still in that phase where people are still really excited off of Kingdom Hearts 3. Most of them have already beaten it, so they've seen the secret ending, and now they're hopping to Union Cross because they kind of have to. But one of the things that separates like older players and newer players is the fact that you need gems in order to really bring your Keyblades up to speed in order to catch up with the power creep, because without these gem boards, it's very, very difficult for a newer player to accelerate themselves to a point where they can kind of compete with veteran players. So these gem deals are super good because they offer you 20 gems of the one that you're looking for, and if I remember correctly, I forgot to look it up before doing this video, 20 gems of one type is enough to bring one of the mono upright blades from level 25 to 35, and I definitely advocate for the idea of bringing up the Fenrir, the Fenrir, the Counterpoint, and the Sleeping Lion up to 35 very, very quickly. If you're unable to bring up the Fairy Stars to level 35, mine's level 40. But I advocate for newer players, if you're starting the game, get the Fenrir, get the Counterpoint, get the Sleeping Lion, and bring those up to 35 as fast as you can, because mono blades at maximum level is probably one of the best ways to start. The reason that I wouldn't say go for Fairy Stars immediately is because it requires all 3 gems at some point to level up. So in order to level up Fairy Stars, you're going to need to buy 3 different enhancement boards, and that's going to be 10,500 jewels. That's a lot more expensive than paying for one of them at 3,500 jewels. Yes, you're going to need to bring your Fairy Stars up to speed at some point, but if you're just starting, you're going to want to bring up those monocolored blades. So the Fenrir again, the Counterpoint, and the Sleeping Lion, you want to bring those up to level 35 as quickly as you can, or Starlight or Stroke of Midnight, but that runs into the same problem as Fairy Stars, where you're going to need all 3 gems for those monocolored blades. And to a lesser degree, you know, the Moogle of Glory, the Divine Rose, and the Olympia, they're dual colored blades. So Olympia is speed and power, the Divine Rose is speed and magic, and then the Moogle of Glory is power and magic. But again, those require multiple gems of different types in order to bring those up. So it's not as useful as bringing up like the Fenrir, the Counterpoint, or the Sleeping Lion in the early game. At some point, all your blades need to be 35. In order to stay competitive, in order to keep up with PvP, all your blades need to be 35 at some point. But just to get you started, that's really good. So that's a fantastic board for new players. It's a fantastic board for veteran players because you can, again, bring those Keyblades up to higher power levels. So when we looked at my Fairy Stars earlier, it's level plus 40. And while the increments of power, like how much your Keyblade actually levels up after, I believe it's level 35 where it starts to slow down, that's still good for veteran players because strengthening your Keyblade slots is permanent damage. Like, that is not going away. As the game moves forward, metals cannot get outdated, but the strength of your Keyblade stays the same, and that's going to keep up with the meta. So keeping up with your Keyblade levels and making sure they're as strong as they possibly can be at any point in the game is just fantastic. So those gem deals are fantastic for almost any player pretty much. The skill enhancement boards, this time around, again, 2,000 jewels is a very, very cheap price to pay in order to get one of these skill enhancement boards. So skill enhancement board A is going to come with attack boost 9 max, attack boost 8 max Lux plus, defense boost 5 max, sleep plus 2 max, and then attack boost 8 max engage 2. I would say skill enhancement board A is okay. There's a few problems with it. So attack boost 9 max doesn't account for gauge cost. So really what we're looking for is like attack boost 9 max SP gauge 2. That would be great. That is something that a lot of players need right now because a lot of the best medals in the game cost 5 or more gauges right now. Attack boost 8 max Lux Plus. It's not a Lux Plus Plus skill, and that instantly drops it off the board for me. Yes, it's nice to get a Lux bonus at the same time dealing high amounts of damage, but as you get better and better at the game, you're going to want to do focusing. So you're going to want to have a Keyblade that's just Lux Plus Plus, or you're going to have a Keyblade that's all 9 max or 10 max, but you don't want to kind of mix and trade when you can have one or the other. The 8 max Lux Plus is really for metals where it's like you have a high attacking metal, you don't have Lux Plus Plus, and you need a high damaging skill. So that's really what that's for. I'd say as you get better at the game, you don't need a max Lux Plus as much as you'll need a very high, like 9 max, 10 max, and then a very high Lux Plus Plus. So if you can keep the two separate, do that. If you need kind of both in one package, do the max and Lux Plus, but I don't really like it as much anymore. Defense use 5 max, stable for PvP, stable for passing certain types of content like the Genie Jafar that ended yesterday. Sleep plus 2 max, definitely a PvP skill. I believe it doesn't work on enemies greater than level 1999, which is pretty much like all the hard bosses nowadays. So Sleep plus 2 max, I feel like it's not going to play as much into PvE content. Attack boost 8 max gauge 2, that's a great skill because again it's an 8 max, it's high damaging, and it's gauge 2, which is fantastic because a lot of the newer metals have a very high gauge cost. So if you have one of those new metals like Guardian Form Sora, it costs 6 gauges to use. Slapping this on it when it has extra attack lowers your total cost from 12 gauges to 4 gauges. But remember that in order to activate the metal special ability, you still need to have those 6 gauges going into the metal. So if, let's just say, let's pull up a Keyblade real quick. I was already on the Keyblade page. So let's say we've got this set up right here, and let's go ahead and bring in our Guardian Form Sora. So if we're on this slot right here and we only have like 3 gauges left, even though I have attack boost 7 max gauge 0, it's not going to proc the gauge 0. You still need to have the minimum 6 going into this in order to activate the metal special effect. And when you activate the special effect, the skill will proc in and lower it from 6 to 0. So remember, that's just a minute detail that some people kind of forget here and there, especially like when you're new and you don't know the mechanics as well as a veteran player. Alright, moving along. So, to Skill Enhancement Board B, fantastic board. I actually really like this one. 8 max gauge 0, so it brings an extra attack metal that has a 6 gauge cost from 12 to 0. And not only that, but gauge 0 guarantees the activation of the metal twice because it costs nothing to use the first time. And then, unless it's like one of the like Birth by Sleep trios, which kind of remove gauges from you, like it forcibly removes gauges from you. If there's nothing like that, nothing crazy, if it's not pretty much one of those Birth by Sleep metals, it guarantees your extra attack is going through. Whereas if you had something like 8 max gauge 2, let's say you go into the metal with extra attack, and it costs 6 gauges. If you activate if you have 6 gauges yourself, you activate the attack boost 8 max gauge 2, you bring yourself down to 4 gauges and you're unable to activate the extra attack. So gauge 0 guarantees you that second extra attack, and we've got 2 of those skills in here. Yes, 7 max is falling off the board since we've got 10 max coming along the way, but it's still a skill you can use on a metal you don't plan on using very often, or like a metal where you're going to be using it in PvP more. So just keep in mind, gauge 0 is fantastic. And then you've got another 7 max gauge 1 and 8 max gauge 2. So it even takes the 8 max gauge 2 that I talked about in the first board, puts it in the second one, and I already talked about how good that skill was. So now you've got 2 8 maxes and gauges in this board B, which is really good. And then you have 2 7 maxes, gauge 0, gauge 1, kind of like just to buffer it out. And then 8 max to round, or I'm sorry, defense boost 5 max to round it all out. Fantastic board. If you're new, if you need skills, go Enhancement Board B, because Enhancement Board A I feel like will not pay off in the long run as much as Board B will. Alright, we've got trait metal boards, and this kind of makes me sad because I love the trait boards, but last time we got them, this was part of the notice. So it literally told us exactly what came in the board. And when I went to go look at the new boards, I was like, I can't see what skill comes in it. So does it come with 8 max gauge 2? Is it still 7 max gauge 2? Is it 7 max gauge 1? And that kind of plays a factor to it, because when you have the metal and you don't have additional skills to throw on it, the purpose of the board last month was that it gave you everything you needed in a one board. Now we don't know, because the way it's worded is that, let's move this. It doesn't tell you. It just says trait metal boards. They're available pretty much for 20 days, which is, it doesn't take us to the end of the month, so keep that in mind. They cost 15,000 jewels, 1,500 jewels, so 1,500 jewels, similarly to last month, and these are the boards that are available. And it was really important for me to know what skill came in them, because not knowing what skill comes in them means that you could end up with a perfectly traded medal that you can't use because you don't have a skill to use it with. So I don't know if they're trying to pair this with the skill enhancement boards where you don't know what skill you're getting, and then you're gonna have to buy skills, and it's like you're getting whammed with 3,500 jewels in order to buy both the traits and the skill. But I love these boards. Honestly, these are fantastic because with the high rate of people pulling tier 9s, you just don't have traits. And if we go to my avatar boards, you can actually see the ones that I bought last month. So if we go back in the past a little bit, I bought 3 of the Axel boards and then 4 of the Guardian Form Sora boards. And that's because Axel, I think, is going to have infinite value moving forward, almost infinite value moving forward. And then the Guardian Form Sora, I had no traits on it, like absolutely none. So it was just really important for me to bring that up to speed. And this is what I ended up with on Guardian Form Sora. Obviously, it was worth it. And then this is what I ended up on Supernova Kingdom Hearts 3 Lee. Worth it. The only trade-off is I didn't get Ariel, which kind of stinks, but that's not too bad. So these trait boards are fantastic. For people that need traits, they have the medal, they pulled into it accidentally. You can't buy it with you can't buy traits with VIP coins. So these board deals are honestly really, really good. I wouldn't do any of the ones for Kingdom Hearts 3 Sora, Riku, or Young Xehanort. Those have fallen off the map almost completely, with the best thing about them being they're going to give you plus 15 strength and give the enemy minus 15 general defense. So if you need them, by all means, but really they're there for like a buffering purpose. Getting extra attack on them doesn't do as much as it would getting extra attack on something like Kingdom Hearts 3 Kairi, but it's your choice in the end. I personally don't like these first 3 just because they're kind of outdated at this point. Like, you can't really use them for damaging as much. They're really just for buffering purposes. But if you get like paralysis resist plus 60, it's going to be a great PvP medal. Alright, so you've got Supernova Kingdom Hearts 3 Vanitas. Remember that Kingdom Hearts 3 Vanitas is the only reverse speed tier 9 medal that we have right now, as far as I know. So if we go tier 9, if we go reverse speed, I'm pretty sure this is the only one. And this is important because this means when you put it into Stroke of Midnight, you can use this medal more. Like, you can use it more optimally if it has better traits. It pretty much self-buffs itself without having general strength and general defense, but it self-buffs itself, which is just fantastic. And if you could have a self-buffing medal that has good traits, you can slap it anywhere. And that was the big deal when Kingdom Hearts 3 Maleficent came out. That's the big deal when Kingdom Hearts 3 Pete came out, because it pretty much self-buffed itself. So keep in mind that Vanitas is the only reverse green tier 9 medal we have until they release the Reflect Speed medal, which I feel like is going to be like Ventus Vanitas or Vanitas, something like that. They love doing that. So let's see here. Then we have Anti-Aqua, which is important because Anti-Aqua is a PvP medal and a PvE medal, so any traits you get on it, minus usually max HP plus 800, are going to be useful to you. Resists are going to be useful because you'll use it in PvP. Defense is going to be useful because you're going to use it in PvP. Gauges is going to be useful because it's a reverse medal, and certain reverse Keyblades don't have good gauges, so having more gauges is good. Obviously, ground, aerial, extra attack, strength, those are all going to be good. So for the most part, any traits you get on Anti-Aqua will benefit you in some way, shape, or form. Minus, again, HP plus 800, but that's kind of changing. That's kind of changing because now they're making it so that if you have perfect buffs, you can survive an attack with enough HP. So kind of have mixed feelings on max HP plus 800 right now. Youth in White, good, because if you have it, don't have extra attack, then you get extra attack, broken. It's absolutely amazing with extra attack on it. Youth in Black, I don't really know how I feel about that, but if you have it, it's a tier 9, does high damage, has a pretty high strength. I believe it's like 23,000, which is not as like crazy as Kingdom Hearts 3 Roxas right now with 30,000 strength, but it's still really good, and it is pretty much you're able to pay for traits for it. So pretty good overall. And then let's see. Remember that once you've purchased a board, it remains unlocked for you even after the available period has ended. So if you don't have inventory space and you kind of want to hold off on it, you can just hold off on it. Obviously, if you're doing one of these, you should be just getting it all right away pretty much. Alright, so this is already a 15-minute video talking about the boards, so I'm actually going to cut it here and make more notice videos so that people can kind of pick the notices that they want to hear about. So with that being said, that is the end of this video. Thank you all so much for watching. If there are any questions, comments, or concerns, feel free to drop them down in the comments below, and I'd be happy to answer when I have the time. But as always, everyone, until next time, which will be pretty soon, take it easy.